There's a moment every entrepreneur hits. You're working harder than you ever have. The calendar is packed, but the inbox feels endless. That to-do list never gets shorter, and somehow the business still isn't growing the way that it should be. But the problem isn't effort. The problem is leverage. Welcome to the Leverage Podcast. I'm your host, John Davidson, and every week I'm sitting down with founders and top performers who have found that lever. The hire, the system, that mindset shift that changed everything. This show is for the business owner who's ready to stop being the bottleneck and start being the architect. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Leverage Podcast. I'm your host, John Davidson, and today I am excited to be joined by Monica Bettencourt, hailing from beautiful, sunny Miami, Florida. Monica, thank you for joining me today on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely. So you have been a real estate agent in the Miami area for quite some time now. I'm sure you know the area backwards and forwards. For those listening, what makes Miami a great place to buy a home and live?
So many things, but Miami has a neighborhood for everyone, I believe. So Miami is huge, but it's very neighborhood specific. So maybe you're artsy, maybe you want a quieter area, maybe you like city life, maybe you like a lot of events, maybe you're a sports fan, and we can find a neighborhood, or you need certain school districts. And so I think in Miami, most people that come can find the lifestyle they're looking for with great weather all year round, of course. So I think that's a big plus.
Absolutely. Well, you've had a very long career, but you've had some stops in your career leading up to real estate. Take me through this origin story of yours. Let's start from the beginning. Tell me, how did you get to where you are today?
So real estate, I started later than most people do in real estate, right? My kids were already like the younger ones in middle school, but I originally graduated with a degree in accounting, believe it or not, in business administration. And my husband and I had a business that he had started, which was engineering, selling jet engines and all that stuff. So I did like the books for him. But I realized that the part I liked the most about working with him and his company was the other people that I got to meet at other companies. And you don't get to do a lot of that in the accounting department. So little by little, I phased out of that. And as the kids grew up, I started working more on boards and schools and nonprofits. And the meeting people and the helping people with whatever issue they had is really what attracted me. It was the whole people part. So at one point, I realized that I was working a lot of hours every week. And I was helping people, but I could make this into a business. And real estate is something that had always attracted me, especially in Miami. If you lived here, through the stages of the late 70s and the 80s and 90s, you realize that, Miami was rapidly changing. Miami was becoming a very international and very cosmopolitan city. And that's exciting. And to have seen it happen gave me a particular advantage, I think, over somebody that was just coming into the city. So I knew real estate, or I assumed, and I was fortunately right, that real estate would be the perfect platform to help people see what I loved about Miami and experience it for themselves. So that's why I decided the next career move for me would be Miami real estate. And I'm thrilled that I did.
Fantastic. And how many years have you been in real estate now?
20.
20 years. Well, I know that since 2011, you have ranked in the top half of the top 1% of realtors nationwide. It's very impressive to do 1 year, much less consistently over all of these years. What do you credit that not just success, but consistency to?
So I've been asked that question, before, and I really think that the thing is that I really enjoy helping people to achieve whatever it is they wish to achieve, whether it's to sell or to buy or to rent while they figure out where they want to live. But it's the helping people adjust to and find their place in our beautiful Miami and make them feel comfortable and make whatever transaction they're working on as smooth as possible. I truly do enjoy, like, it's not just about the home that they're going to buy or sell, but what does their family need? How can I help? How can I make their transition easier? It might be helping them with school choices. It might be helping them to find the right doctors or the right place to do their hair, whatever it may be. I like to make people feel welcomed by me and by our city. And the bonus is I end up being good friends with most of my clients, and I have really, truly, my best friends today are probably people I've met through real estate. And so I think that makes people happy and confident to refer you. Obviously, they know that I know the market and I'm going to help them get the best deal and the best transaction possible, but with a very personal touch. And I think that allows me to receive referrals and recommendations from people that allow me to be in that top tier.
Yeah, well, speaking of referrals and recommendations, I know upwards of 85% of your business is either repeat business or referrals, which is absolutely extraordinary. What do you do intentionally with your clients to build this sort of trust that makes them want to work with you again or recommend you to someone in their network?
Well, I mean, the first thing I do is sit down with people to find out, what is it we need, right? What are you trying to do? I just had a meeting with somebody yesterday. They may or may not want to sell. I don't really put pressure on them to do one or the other. I just give them the facts, with that regard about the market and what they can expect in today's market with their property, or if they're buying the same thing. But I want to make them sure that I'm not going anywhere. So I really do emphasize to the clients that I'm here for them regardless of their timeline. We're not on my timeline. I'm not in a hurry. This is about you achieving what you want to achieve within your timeline and your comfort zone, whatever that may be for yourself or your family, or your business. So I think that making people feel confident that I'm going to be there for them, whether they make a decision today or in a year or 2 years or however long it may take. And so, I mean, I've had people call me 7 years after we first talked about something. But,
Wow.
we stay in touch. I always stay in touch with people and make sure they're doing fine. And if there's anything I can do to help them, with no pressure. And so people, when they're ready to make that decision, they feel comfortable calling and letting me know that they're ready. So I think just intentionally making people understand that I'm not going anywhere. Miami's
Yeah.
my home. I'm always going to be here, and I'm going to be here for you.
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
Well, I know I have a fantastic realtor here in Dallas, and I always smile when I get a card in the mail. It's my
Right,
birthday,
right.
my son's birthday or something like that. What are some of
The
those
dog's
tactics?
birthday.
The dog's birthday, that's the one to write down. Yeah, what are some of those tactics that you employ where, you have those touch points over the years? You said, it was 7 years from somebody meeting you. How are you interacting with these folks when there's not a transaction to be had immediately?
So, I mean, we all have our CRMs and our ways to keep in touch with clients and all that. But, obviously we have reminders on our phones and, on our calendars for birthdays and anniversaries and important days like that. But I also like to just call and see how people are doing. I generally am interested genuinely about, how are you and how's your family? And, I think your daughter graduated from high school last year. How was it? Or congratulations. Or this year, if you keep certain dates, to remind yourself to call people. I mean, and it's not just for business. It's because really it's nice for people to know you care. There are a lot of people in your social circles, including family. And I always tell people, that's what calendars are for. You want to support the people you not just do business with, but the people you love and your family as well. And, it could happen that you miss someone's anniversary or birthday or graduation day if you don't remind yourself.
Yeah.
So I think just I try to keep in touch with people, based on either dates that I know are important to them, or maybe if, I put a reminder like every 4 months, hey, have you heard from Susie lately? And if not, let's call her and see how she's doing, and
Yeah.
how everybody's doing. And I think, it's just, it's become a habit with me. I don't really consider it a chore. It's just something I'm always thinking of the people that I've been dealing with and how are they doing, and how are the people that, we saw each other more than a year ago. Let's have breakfast, or let's have a coffee, or if they don't have time, let's just have a quick call and catch up. I
Yeah.
think,
Well, the word that popped out with me there is genuinely. And when you genuinely care about people, it's not a task, it's not a chore. You just really care.
yeah,
And
you
so
just really
reaching
want to
out
make
and
sure
touching base
everybody's,
is just everyday life.
it's just everyday life. You really want to make sure everybody's okay. Things happen in people's lives, and, if you don't ever stay in touch, you won't know. And
Yeah,
it's nice to be able to support your friends and your business associates, and certainly your family.
absolutely. Well, Miami is one of the most internationally influenced cities in the United States. And so I'm sure you've interacted with so many people from different countries and different cultures over your career in real estate. What have you learned experiencing so many different cultures through your clients?
So I've learned a lot of things. One of the things I have learned, and it's been very helpful to me, is that I speak, my native language is Spanish. I'm from Colombia originally, but I lived in Brazil growing up, and so I speak fluent Portuguese. And I think being trilingual in Miami, especially with those two languages, has been very important, because even though most people at a certain level um, are going to speak English, even if it's not completely fluent, they're more comfortable in their native language if that's an option. It's not that
Hmm.
they won't deal with anybody in another language, because they will, and they do business every day in English. But it's a comfort thing, and it's a culture thing. And even with like Latin American countries, every country is different.
Yeah.
Every version of Spanish is different. And it's nice when they realize that you realize where they're from when they speak.
Mm,
Even if you haven't been to their particular country, I've been to most South American countries, but even if you haven't, they like it, to feel comfortable and to feel welcome. So I've learned that not just the language, but understanding the culture. Um, the Latin American culture is different than the European culture, is different than the Asian culture, is
right.
different than the, you know, American United States culture, which again is different in the South from the North, et cetera, like that.
Yeah.
So if you can, kind of talk to people, and through your experience with other people from the same area, just remember what is important um, to certain cultures. It really helps a lot, and I've learned that through the years. You know, I didn't know what was important to, for example, certain Asian cultures when I first started in real estate. But if you talk to people, they'll tell you, and then you just have to put that in your mental bank and remember that, because it's important to people. And
Yeah.
so I think I think that is something that I've learned that has really helped me a lot throughout the whole process.
Yeah. Well, I know that any individual who is successful to a certain point doesn't do it all themselves, right? And so different folks have teams and there's different structures of different teams. Tell me the relatively unique way that you work with a team.
So the first thing I'll tell you is that for me, it's very important what brokerage you work with. So I've really only worked with two big brokerages.
Hmm.
I'm with Caldwell Banker now. And I think that for me, having that solid, historically recognized brokerage behind you is really important. It's important to the clients. It's important to international clients who recognize the brand. And it's important in every transaction, because should there be anything that needs, legal attention, or a broker attention, you have a team behind you. And so I think that's really important. Then, speaking of the more individual team approach, some I think the more general approach is to have this team of people with a team leader, and different teams organized different ways, and spread out the workload. But for me, I think collaboration with different realtors has worked better. I do have a full-time director of operations that is on salary that I pay her, and could not ever do what I do without her. And I have an assistant who I have in the past had full-time assistants that work only for me. But right now it's working very well for me to have an assistant that helps me with the paperwork and the files and all that kind of stuff. And I pay them based on however many hours they work. So some weeks they work a lot more than others, as is the case in our business. And they're very happy with that because it allows them to do other things that they may want to do on their own as well. So, and the same with realtors. I have 3 or 4 realtors that work with me on project basis. We all trust each other. We've known each other for a long time. They're excellent realtors. And so I'm happy to be able to, hand over a client to them to do showings, or to, take them out to see neighborhoods or whatever it is, because I know they work the same way I do. At the end of the day, I will supervise every contract and every transaction that goes through, my group, my team, because, the buck stops here. So I want to make sure everything is well done and correctly done. But the collaborating with different realtors and with an assistant has worked really well for me. I also have freelancers. My director of operations used to run a really large company, and she has freelancers all over the country that can do all sorts of things for us. And that works fantastically well because there's a lot of minutia in real estate that I shouldn't be spending my time on, and certainly my director of operations shouldn't be spending her time on. But we could pay somebody to do it and do a fantastic job, and then just give it back to us all done. So I think, everybody has to find their system, but for me, this system works. So I have very trusted freelancers that I've worked with for years now, and they're very happy working with me. I'm sure they have lots of other jobs, but they've never failed me, and it just works really well. I'm
That's
happy with that
wonderful.
approach.
Yeah, with those listening and thinking, wow, this is a unique approach compared to the traditional team, specifically with these freelance relationships. What are some of the tasks that you're having these freelancers?
For example, um, I wanted to get and verify emails for an entire neighborhood, right? So I give them the boundaries of the neighborhood, and they go on the Miami-Dade tax appraiser site. They find all the names and name and address of each owner, and there are programs that you can pay for that help you find phone numbers and or emails. But then you have to verify them because a lot of them are old or not valid or whatever.
Sure.
So they go through the process of verifying the emails and see which ones bounce back. And then when I get it, it's a list of maybe not every single person in that neighborhood, but all the ones that were able to be verified. So they just saved me a ton of time. They did it faster than I could have. And now I have a solid block of emails and phone numbers that I can put in my database that are exactly the neighborhood that I'm targeting. And it works. And people receive our emails, and hardly anybody ever unsubscribes. I don't flood people with emails, but I give them relevant information.
Yeah.
And, at this stage of the game, the neighborhoods I'm targeting are neighborhoods where I'm known. And so
Right.
people know that it's not a spam email. And again, I don't flood people with emails or anything. And I still send postcards and, mailers. People still look at mailers where we live. So
Yeah, that's a tremendous example of how you're expanding your reach, but you're doing so in a way that you're not wasting your time. Wasting maybe is not the right term, but on things that actually need you,
right. Right.
right?
One of the coaches that I follow always says, you know, is this worth your time? Can somebody else do this? That they don't need to be an expert in real estate.
hmm
They sure don't. They just need to know what they're doing and, get it done.
Yeah, I once worked with a coach, and she put it very well to help me understand. She said, John, if you want to make $100,000, right? Just to use a round number, that's $50 an hour. And so, I was very kind of scarcity mindset. I was a little scared to pay somebody or
Yes,
put another liability on my books, right? And she said,
yes,
John, if this is a task that you would not pay, we got lights, sensors over here. If this is a task that you would not pay someone $50 an hour for, you should be delegating this, because the truth of the matter is, if you are doing it and you're making $100,000 a year, you are paying $50 an hour.
that's right. That's a great way to put it. It's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, I want to learn a little bit more about your career, but before we do that, let's listen to a short message from our sponsor, Sphere Rockets.
Business owners and entrepreneurs will place a proven executive assistant VA for just $4 to $8 an hour, and if they don't perform, you don't pay. Imagine freeing up 20 plus hours a week by someone handling your most time-consuming tasks like admin work, managing emails, scheduling meetings, and so much more. This one hire could transform your productivity and give you back the time you need to focus on growing your business. At Sphere Rocket VA, we make this possible in as little as 7 days. We'll place a proven executive assistant VA in your business for just $4 to $8 an hour, and your VA will take over day-to-day administrative tasks, help manage your email and calendar, follow up with past clients, giving you back 20 plus hours a week so you can increase your sales and even enjoy more personal time. And here's the best part. If they don't give you back 20 plus hours a week in the first month, you don't pay Sphere Rocket a dime. We've done this for thousands of business owners, and now it's your turn to see the results. Click the link around this video to schedule a demo and discover how this one hire can completely change how you run your business. Remember, if within 45 days the VA doesn't perform, you don't pay.
All right, we are back here with Monica Bettencourt from Miami, Florida, and she is sharing all sorts of insights on her experience in real estate. Monica, I really appreciate you sharing your experience with me here today.
Yes.
You know, one question I love to ask successful people is about lessons from failure, and that's because it's great to talk about the successes and high commissions or top 1% or what have you, but I can't speak for you, but for me, I rarely learn from my wins. I
Right,
wish
right.
I wish I could learn as much from my wins as my losses. Take me back to a time where a moment that felt like maybe a failure or maybe it was a mistake, but taught you one of the more important lessons of your career.
So I think it was one of my first listings that I had over $1 million. And the gentleman that owned the property was a little difficult to speak with, right? I mean, he wasn't like regularly like a talkative person, but he is the owner of the property. And I guess I was a little intimidated by his way of communicating. And so I didn't communicate like often enough. And
Hmm.
even though I was doing all the work and I was showing his property and, things I thought were going well, one day he called my broker and he told him he wanted to switch realtors because he had
Oh
no
no.
idea what I was doing. And my broker called me and said, "What's happening?" I said, I was in shock. I was almost in tears. I said, "Oh my gosh, I've done so much work. I've done this, I've done that." And she said to me, "Does he know that?"
Ah.
And so, the light just went off because, yeah, I had sent him emails, but I hadn't properly communicated everything I was doing. And I certainly didn't call or speak with him like I probably did with my other clients because I was intimidated. And it ended up that we didn't switch realtors, but only because, I had great advice from my broker and I called him and I apologized and I told him I understood and I really did if he wanted to switch. But this is what I've been doing and I'm so sorry I haven't communicated with you. And he said, well, let's see how you do in the next 10 days because otherwise, we're this isn't working. And it was just I'm not used to that kind of I call it failure because communicating is one of my strong points.
Yeah.
And so what it taught me is that you have to be yourself, and you have to communicate, and you have to tell people what's happening all the time with their asset. This is their asset, regardless of whether they respond to you the way you want or not. Right. So it was just one of those, you have to have tougher skin, Monica.
Yeah.
There's no crying in baseball, so they say. So
That's right.
I think that was really for me to realize that someone thought I was not communicating, and they were right. It's not just that they thought I was not communicating properly with them, was huge. And there have been other failures and other losses for, various reasons. Maybe, we didn't, I don't know, maybe we didn't advertise the way the owner thought we should or whatever, but it was that communicating failure that really got to me. And I don't think that ever happened again. And I think that's part of the reason why I do get referral business, is because I always try to stay in touch with the buyer or seller, like constantly, however they prefer, phone call, text, both, email, whatever it is. We want to make sure that you feel taken care of, even because somebody can be taking care of you and you might not know it if they're doing it behind the scenes.
That's a really good point. And obviously, you're dealing with so many different personalities in real estate, and people have all sorts of different communication preferences, right? And so some
Correct.
people want an email, some want a call, some want a text, etc. How do you go about discovering someone's preferred channel of communication in addition to communicating consistently?
So I first ask them, but I will tell you that I always email no matter what. I learned my lesson, because email is a record that you did send them the information.
Good
But
point.
I don't just email. I also call. And if they answer, great. And we chat and we have a wonderful talk. If they don't, I leave a nice message. And some people do prefer to text. And it becomes obvious when they text you, like you see when they text you back. And that's totally fine. And I text them back. I still send an email,
Yeah,
just confirming per our text that I'll be there, whatever day and time, so it's kind of, I don't want to call it trial and error, but you just have to be aware of, I ask them up front,
hmm
how do you prefer that I let you know how every showing went? How do you, whatever. And I do whatever they prefer. But if their preferred method is text, which I think is wonderful, and it's obviously the quickest for realtors because we're always on the go, I still email them, at the end
Yeah,
of the day, to let them know, in a more permanent way, what is happening. But if you ask people, they'll tell you.
right. And it sounds like if you're going to default, if you're going to err one way to the other, it's better to over communicate than under communicate.
100%. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just have a couple more questions here for you, Monica. I'm really enjoying all your insights based on your experience here. And the question I have for you is to take you back about 20 years when you first started in this space. It's so funny with my personal experience. There's times where I think I know a lot, and then years pass and I look back to when I thought I knew a lot, and I'm like, I can't believe how I didn't know what I didn't know. Take me back to, if you were to speak to your former self on day one, getting into real estate, what advice would you give yourself?
Probably a few pieces of advice that I tell young realtors when they ask me. Number one, tell every single person every week what you're doing for a living now. Not in
Hmm.
an obnoxious way, but just mention it. You can say, oh, you're in conversation, and how was your day today? Oh, I did this, I did that. And you say, oh, I showed a beautiful house today, or I went to a wonderful open house today, or I discovered a new neighborhood today. I love real estate. I'm so happy I'm in it. It's not like you're yelling at them that you're in real estate, but you have to remind people because they're not used to you being in real estate. In my case, I was already in my 40s, right? So people really didn't know that I was in real estate. And I don't think I told enough people in the first couple of years, or I didn't tell them enough. Like sometimes somebody that I knew really well would list a house with somebody, and I'd say, congratulations, I'm very happy for you. Can I please ask you why you didn't interview me? I don't expect anybody to give me a listing, but why didn't you interview me? I forgot. I honestly forgot you were in real estate. And then you're like, The second thing I would tell people is go to every single open house in the neighborhood that you most want to work in. Go to every single open house, go to every single broker's open, because you have to know the market physically, not just on paper. You have to know what the houses look like. You have to know what the apartments look like. You have to understand the difference between something that's selling for, $700,000 and something that's selling for $1.3 million that are in the same building and the same size. Why? Why is that? So if you go and physically see the properties, it becomes obvious after, a few times what the differences are. And definitely, no matter what you do, no matter how communicative and wonderful and friendly you are, you have to know the numbers. You have to know your market. You have to be aware of, what the changes have been, what's happening right now, what's the inventory like. It's not that you have to know every house by heart, but you have to know, the general direction of the market. Because once people remember you're in real estate and you say hi, their first question is, how's the market?
I've heard that many times. Yep.
Right. And so in Miami, we need to say, the market is wonderful, but what area are you speaking about? Because we're very neighborhood specific. And even in certain neighborhoods, we're very street specific. As an example, I'll give you South Miami as a city where, we have 36 municipalities within Miami-Dade County. So let's say, you want to know how the market in South Miami is. I'll tell you how the market in South Miami is, but did you want to know South Miami east of a certain street or west of a certain street?
Oh, wow.
It makes a difference.
That's
so
specific.
You really have to know that. And you have to just, once it becomes a habit, you just are daily checking. So, but when you start, it has to be a very conscious effort to look at it every day and see what's sold, what's pending, what came on the market, and then go see them physically.
And what is the most reliable and consistent source for you for continually understanding the very specifics of these markets?
The MLS.
The MLS?
The MLS tells you every day what's pending, what came on the market, what canceled, why did it cancel? Sometimes I call the agents and I say what happened, and sometimes there's a very good explanation. Other times they're like, it didn't sell and they didn't want to continue trying. And that's, of course, where if you think it's an opportunity to speak to that seller, like if somebody canceled the listing, but it was highly overpriced, you may want to be able to speak to them and say, why do you think your listing didn't sell? And here's what I think,
Good point.
But the MLS gives you a really good picture. And if you just analyze it, take a look at it daily, but if you analyze it, weekly or bi-weekly in terms of graphing the progress, you'll see what's happening.
Yeah. Well, it is very clear that you understand what is going in this broad and very specific market. Monica, for those listening who are thinking, boy, I'm thinking about moving to Miami, or maybe I'm selling a house in Miami and I'm hearing this woman, Monica, who clearly knows what she's talking about. She's, has provides such a great client experience. And I would love to get in touch with her regarding my home or my future purchase. How can people get in touch with you?
Oh, I'm always available. I mean that sincerely. I will answer my phone anytime. But my website is my name, monicabettencourt.com. So that's easy to remember. And my phone number is right on my website. It's a 305 number, so you'll know that it's a Miami number. And you can call, text, email anytime. We always answer. Of course, you can also sign up on the web and we'll get right back to you. So whatever's easier for you, but I'm here to help and help you understand Miami and help you understand, if you wish to sell, what the options are at the moment that you're ready. And I'm here for you. So it'd be a pleasure. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, Monica, thank you so much for joining me today on the Leverage Podcast.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.